Hello, everybody. It is Craig. It's at 6 p.m. Central Time, and we are starting our Facebook Live Q&A for freight brokers, truck drivers, and everybody in between. And so I do want to start off by saying um, I meant to do this. I promised last week or the week before. Just didn't get around to it. Been busy with other projects, and of course, the training that I do primarily. And so, better late than never. And so, I just want to make sure for the people who are watching, can you guys hear me okay? If so, just either like or drop a comment just so I know um, that you guys can hear me because I'm not able to check it. Better late than never. And so, cool. And so, on here. Can you guys hear me okay? I had it on my phone here. And so, during this live Q&A, I have my phone, so I will be seeing the questions. You can just drop the questions in the comment section, and we will get to them either if I see them right away or right after the show, what have you. And so I know the majority of people know me, but if you don't know me, my name is Craig. I'm the creator of the Facebook group Freight Brokers and Truck Drivers. I'm also co-owner of Freight Brand, a carrier-focused consulting and training agency here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I wanted to do this Q&A because going through the group, of course, when the market is flipping one way or the other, you see a lot of posts. The majority of the posts from the smaller guys who are struggling in a market like this. And so basically, I just ask people for their questions, or I, go through the group and grab the questions myself. And so I do have a list here. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go through them and answer them as I see it. But a couple things before we get started. I do want to thank Trucker Tools for sponsoring this live Q&A. As you know, they are one of our group partners. Definitely enjoy having them around. They do lots of fun stuff in the group, such as the giveaways, as we've seen with the Show Off Your Rig. Speaking of, the winner for Show Off Your Rig was Adam. The members voted his truck was about 15 likes on that one. I already spoke to Adam, so we're going to get that price sent out from Trucker Tools right away. And so, also, one more thing. Before we get started, I know a lot of times, especially when the market's this crazy, there's a lot of horror stories. So one thing I do want to ask, if you can in the comments below, go ahead and post a win that you had, this week or last week, because I do want to talk about that to kind of help out the other members who are struggling due to the capacity and the market issues. And so the number one question, when I start going through all the questions I got, the number one question that keeps coming up a lot on my personal Facebook Messenger as well as my page, Craig Bliss, is how to survive. And now I get this question a lot, primarily from truckers, okay? But a lot from, brokers, in this case, a smaller brokers or the smaller freight agents with their agency. And so it's how to survive. So I'm going to answer it both sides. Excuse me, how to survive as a trucker as well as how to survive as a broker. Okay, so for the trucker side, I talked about this a little bit in my a video, a couple videos ago or so when I was speaking about the recession. And, it's surviving as a trucker, it's rough. I mean, we all know it. This is freight. The markets go up and down. That's the only thing that remains constant in freight is the how the market fluctuates. And so I don't say it lightly. To survive in a market like this, if you were one of the guys who bought a whole bunch of trucks during 2018, thinking those trucks were going to support your business operation in 2019, you need to look to see if you can downsize. If all your trucks are fully loaded, during the week, keep them. But if they're not, and this is what I'm talking about, if you have trucks sitting in the yard, drivers twiddling their thumbs, and you are going broke, look about getting rid of some of those assets. I mean, the tractors, the trailers, what have you. Just get rid of them now. We all know this market will go back to normal. It's just a matter of when the market will go back to normal. And I know I got a ton of kickback when I told people to look into, downsizing your assets. Like I said, I don't say it lightly because I definitely understand and feel, what people think about downsizing in that matter. But I only say that if you're not keeping your trucks loaded, if you're struggling to find freight for them, if your drivers are sitting around twiddling their thumbs and you're going broke, you need to start there. After your assets, start looking at your business operations. I understand last year, the market was insane. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit brokers paying $3, $4 a mile freight with your eyes closed, and anybody without experience could book high dollar freight off the low boards. This year is totally different. And I say that because if you hired staff to help out during the 2018 and they're not needed in 2019, you need to start looking at cutting it back. I get it. A lot of us hire friends and family, in our smaller operations. You don't want to downsize, but you need to start thinking about what you can do because this is serious stuff. I was going to talk about it towards the end, but I guess I'll ask it now. Do you think the trucking industry is heading into a recession? And now I'm just asking to get everybody's opinion about it in their field. I know I already did this whole video about it, but in my opinion, I believe we are. And that's why I'm helping you guys out by saying start thinking outside the box. Start thinking about what you can do to survive during this. And now, scratch all the downsizing, and now I'm going to go back into more satisfying answers to the question, how can I survive in this industry as a trucker? Another thing is, you need to figure out who your strongest brokers are. We hear it all the time, some truckers use brokers, some don't use them, some hate them, some love them, whatever. If you use brokers and you're struggling, start looking at who is your strongest broker. What broker has the most freight? In this case, I have the smaller guys, either on the broker side or the carrier side, they're more in my heart than these megas. But in this market, you need to start thinking about just strictly business. And so in this case, I would definitely tell you, if the mega brokerages are the ones with the freight, you need to go knocking on the door. You need to reintroduce yourself. You need to start building these relationships with the person answering the phone. Typically, it's a logistics coordinator, an intern, a carrier sales rep guy, what have you. But those are the dudes with the freight, and you're the guy who's needing the freight. And so that's what you're needing to do. And that's by far out of this, my biggest tip is looking to see who in the past has given you the freight, given you the most freight, what broker you make the most money on revenue-wise, and go back to them, bang down their door, reintroduce yourself if you haven't already, and start building that relationship with them. Again, because in a market like this, you definitely need it, and you can never have too many tools in the toolbox. And that's one thing I always talk about, is having sharp tools in the toolbox, and that's one of them. Another thing is, again, last year, you can basically end up anywhere in the market, in the U.S., and basically you will find freight. I mean, it was no secret. This year, where's the freight at? That's the thing. And so right now, there's, low volume of freight with a high volume of capacity. And so what you need to do is go where the freight's going. And now, how do you do that? Because today, freight's here, tomorrow, freight's there. Well, you need to start using your resources. This is one thing I'm going to start talking about a lot more, to both freight brokers, truck drivers, and industry professionals in between. You have to start going where the freight's going. I understand a lot of people say more regional, want to say in the Southeast, to the Midwest, what have you. But the freight's not there. You need to start driving where the freight is, or you're simply going to start. And now that being said, the reason why you have to use your resources, because you are not the only guy or woman truck driver, who is looking for freight. And you're definitely not the only one who's starting to think outside the box and travel to areas maybe they're not too familiar with, or maybe areas that they'd rather not be in, but they're traveling there because it's freight's there. So you have to take note on that. Yeah, I see the comment about China and Mexico. That is a whole other story, with the tariffs. And one thing to mention about that, we keep going into using resources. If you use your resources such as maybe a news channel, a trusted media channel, or, other logistics industry professionals or people, in shipping centers, whatever, you have to start talking with them to know what is going on outside of transportation. Because just because it's not For an example, just because this tariff doesn't sound like it's transportation related, let me tell you, it has transportation written all over it. Um, and that's what we're running into. It's like with these tariffs, you can see I'm a huge believer in FreightWaves. I talk about them all the time because they are one of my strongest tools I have in the toolbox. As I say, they're on my top shelf tool. But anyways, FreightWaves, yup. FreightWaves is who I go to get my trusted industry news. I mean, they're one of my trusted, sources, resources, what have you. Um, and that's what you have to start doing, because going back to it, you have to start reading what is going on in the industry to have a better gauge of where you're at and what you're about to start facing. And so FreightWaves, I mean, the moment that the president, tweeted that we're going to have tariffs, the numbers show, the market proves from FreightWaves that the market started declining. Of course, at that moment, I can't remember exactly what happened, early May. The market was already crashing a little bit, but it definitely took, a pit dive, really. And the reason being is because the tariffs, they may not affect you, personally, but they affect transportation. And so during these tariffs, it starts causing the market to react crazy. It's now we have Mexico, we now have the Mexico tariffs into the mix here. And so what happens? Now they're going to start having, probably start shipping a ton of crap through the port, through the borders, Laredo, Eagle Pass, what have you, which causes a disruption in the freight industry. And now, if you don't know things like that, or if you don't follow it, or if you don't use your resources, you would just wake up one day and say, what the hell? Why is there so much crap coming out of Laredo? I should have been there a few days ago. Well, you could have been if you were using your resources, such as trusted news sources, to find out where the freight is going. I'm with you, Andrew. I watch them every day. I'm in Phoenix, so I'm not exactly sure what time they get posted, but I know every day around 4 p.m., I'm not sure what time zone that is, they post one of their FreightWaves. If you're not getting notification on YouTube about a FreightWaves video, you need to. And look, another thing I want to mention, this industry is full of veterans, okay? It's veterans in this case. We obviously have a lot of service members, men and women, veterans, that as well. But I'm also talking about the guys who've been doing this since basically I was in diapers. Those are the guys that need the most help, and I'm going to tell you why. They're the ones who don't easily adapt to the technology. They're the ones who are more old school, which is awesome. Old school values, that's great. But in this industry, especially on the broker side and the shipping all the way around, technology is what's going to dominate. That's why you see all these on-demand brokerages, all these on-demand services for trucking. They just didn't pop up out of the middle of nowhere. This has been in the making for years. And now I remember when people used to moan and groan about something as simple as macro point, because it was something that just people could not wrap their heads around. I'm talking about drivers. Couldn't wrap their heads around it. Now, macro point is just a norm, and now we have a zillion other tracking apps. I actually don't prefer macro point for a number of reasons. I made numerous videos about that, but there's other tracking apps that are mainly for the driver to stay in control. And I only mention that because you guys have to start being more open-minded. And now, I have mentioned this many times in the past. I don't do what I do in the group. I don't make these videos. I don't just rant on long posts, just because I'm trying to be Mr. Hollywood or get likes or get shares, what have you. I do it because I'm truly passionate about helping people. And so that is why I do it. And so I mention that because a lot of times people for sure let me know my messages, they don't agree what I'm saying. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to give you a different new age approach on the logistics side. I can do this because of my short 10 years experience. I have worked, on the shipper side, the broker side, and the carrier side. And so I see things a little bit differently. And one thing I always say is I always give my opinions and my knowledge about the industry just based off what I believe in. It doesn't mean it's 100% right, but normally, at least if I'm half right, I'm more right than wrong, okay? And so I just want to mention that again and again and again, because if you're not using or if you're not embracing technology, you need to get on the bandwagon. I get it. You guys probably have the same shippers. you've been using since you walked to school 5 miles in 10-foot snow. I get it. This is new. There's a lot of people like me and younger who have, I don't in particular, but there's a lot of people like me and younger who, let's say, have the backing or funding to really make a difference in the trucking industry. And the ones who are going to succeed is the ones who jump on the bandwagon. And exactly. And so yeah, I'm just mentioning again, because if you're not using technology, if you're not embracing it, you're going to fail. And if you're not using it now in this market, it's the perfect time to start embracing it. And that was mainly on the trucking side. Now, for the new brokers, of course, the new brokers coming out of the industry, you guys have to have the most sharpest tools in the toolbox. I know a member asked, I can't find it right now, quickly flipping through, but she asked something along the lines of how to, become a freight broker, or what's the cost into it. And now, when I train people who I know are about to open up a brokerage, it's kind of difficult because I do know, obviously, the startup cost from the many brokerages I have developed from scratch. I do know the startup cost of this, and I know is not cheap, especially for the technology you need to, not get stomped like a cockroach in the industry when you get first starting out. And so, to answer that particular question, the cost for a new startup brokerage, it just depends. I mean, for the technology that I would recommend, that I always implement in the brokerages I develop, it's about $1,000 a month. I'm not going to go into details about those technologies as I mentioned them in my paid training groups. However, the technologies for brokerages are at least about $1,000 a month. I'm not saying that to say that brokerages have lower overhead or higher overhead than, another part of the industry. I'm just saying the startup cost is there for new freight brokers, so there's no point in starting out as a new freight broker unless you have the sales to support it. I know that's probably a very unsatisfying answer. I do apologize. If you're the one who asked me that question, you can, message me privately. I get this question no less than 25 times a day, so I don't want to rehash it. Keep going through it there. Eric, send me a PM. Basically, how it goes is private training classes. I don't do them too much now one-on-one. I still do it. But it takes up a lot of my time, especially now, with my primary business, Freight Brand. I'm working on a few websites right now, working on some training development with some other companies. So my day is honestly swamped. It will get better though, but my training classes are $50 per ticket, and that includes whether it's a group class or a one-on-one. It's all the same. You buy the ticket off of Craigbliss.com, and when I have it, you schedule it, and we go from there. But send me a private message if you would like more details about the private training classes. As I mentioned, one-on-one's a little bit more difficult. However, I am trying to plan and coordinate a more group setting. I just have not got there yet. And Andrew, I believe that. Yep. And that's right. He mentions $1,000 in tech will produce infinite profits if you know where to find good freight and develop those lanes. Yes. And now, again, 10 years ago, you didn't need the technology, and I understand that everybody and their mothers made money without technology, so why should I use technology now? Because every mega carrier is, every mega brokerage is, and you need to jump on that bandwagon. And now, talking about jumping on the bandwagon, it's FreightWaves, okay? It's companies like FreightWaves, the reason why I like them so much is because they have the money to make differences. It's industry news was, very loose before FreightWaves. It's, you can go to, I'm not going to give them credit, so I'm not going to mention names, but there's, a handful of 5 publications you go to get trusted news. However, FreightWaves does it a little differently because they almost report it like the stock market. And I don't know anything about stock market. I don't need to because that's not my profession. I'm just saying FreightWaves, they produce their content and release their content just like that. I'm being asked, would you open a brokerage near an existing? Would you open a brokerage near an existing 12-unit carrier? I believe what this member is asking, would I open up a freight brokerage office next to a company with 12 carriers? Could you let me know if that's what you're asking there? I just want to make sure I answer it correctly. Okay, while I'm waiting. So if the question is, would I open a brokerage near a carrier with 12 units? I mean, I will open a brokerage anywhere if I wanted to. That's one thing people actually ask me, a lot. It's with all these brokerages I develop, why don't I open a brokerage? The simple answer is I don't want to. It's if I want to deal with all that, I'd rather just find a great brokerage to become an agent for, have them support my operations, and just sell. There's no reason for the headache. Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's no reason for a headache for a brokerage. But since since the member confirmed, I am going to answer that. Yes, it doesn't matter. It's there's competition everywhere. I lived in Chicago 5 or 6 years. That's where I started in logistics. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit blindfold and hit 15 brokerages. And so it really doesn't even matter. And there's a lot of places where the brokerages will be right next to a carrier with a brokerage, maybe a mega brokerage. It doesn't matter. Now, if you're wondering, will that carrier benefit your business, or could that carrier, enhance your business, or you get better chance at getting freight? It's hard to say. It really depends your relationship and your partnership with that carrier. Now, I do know of companies, both carriers, open next to brokerages and brokerages opening next to carriers, separate entities who do support each other's operations, meaning if carrier, Jim Bob's Trucking has overflow freight, in his network, he may give it to, Jim Bob's brokerage who is next door. However, it's just, all situations dictate. One thing to consider there, I can't remember exactly who said it. It could have been Shaggy who said it. I can't remember, and I do apologize. But mentioning how there's a ton of, brokerages. I'm going to use Chicago as an example since I just did that. There's a ton of brokerages in Chicago that don't even handle the local shippers, being right in their backyard. And so I hope that helps you make a better informed decision for your questions. Convenience for sure. FreightWaves, my broker Bible. Yes, and I want to mention this. Drivers, carriers, owner ops, company drivers, listen up, okay? FreightWaves is kind of like a broker Bible in the way of it's a huge, valuable resources, full of resources, information. But carriers, drivers, owner ops, company drivers, whoever can use that to your advantage. It's the same thing of when, I worked on the carrier side. Of course, on the carrier side, I have the broker's DAT open on my other screen because I want to know what these brokers are also looking at. And I do understand, that a lot of people don't agree with that, or they say DAT, manipulates the, the market either with load posting or the rate, what have you. But as it turns out, that is the trusted rate index or pricing index because they are the only ones that are like them. Okay, TruckStop has some kind of rate finder, don't know what it's called. 123 load board about the same. But none of those companies have the same data that DAT has. And so going back to what I was saying, this is why on the carrier side, I always have the DAT brokerage board open because I'm using my resources. If the brokers are using it, I want to know what they're looking at, what they're seeing, what they're doing, what they're thinking, so I can look at, almost predict their next move, or almost know what price they're going to throw at me over the phone. And that's why answering Andrew there, it is like a Bible, literally, because of that reason. And that's why I would say, drivers, you got to use it. You got to arm yourself with the same tools that brokers are to get ahead. I totally understand, talk about FreightWaves sonar, that powerful, system behind the scenes that, the rate indexes shows, the past, current, future pricings, whatever. I do understand it's very expensive. Don't know the prices. I did reach out to them to get pricing. But whatever the prices may be, to be honest, I think it is worth it. And now, talk about the brokers and drivers. I'm actually curious. What load board is everybody using the most now? I mean, we were just speaking about that, just TruckStop, 123 load board, trucker tools. I'm interested to see what boards people are using now. Which ones are using now to kind of get ahead. Ooh, boy. Thank you, Andrew. Well, I got the pricing there. But anyways, I'm wanting to know what load board people are using now for a few different reasons, okay? We all know, DAT is primarily heavy in van and reefer. We all use it for something else, but in my opinion, it's primarily heavy, for that side. For flatbed, heavy haul, special, whatever. I know Truck Stop, and as well as Trucker Tools, of course, has a free load board showing all types of equipment from brokers. And the reason why I want to know this is because of this. Just last week, there wasn't a bunch of loads on the load boards because, people are almost taking anything, or I should say, drivers were taking or being forced to take, if you will, any loads that, they could basically get their hands on because that's where they were at. And now, this week I am seeing a little bit different. I checked Trucker Tools, ton of loads posted. Today, same thing with that, same thing as Truck Stop. Ton of loads are being posted. So I'm just wanting to know, what are people using? And you guys probably saw my last post, a couple videos ago, a week or two ago, about the free load board offered by Trucker Tools called Get Loads. Of course, Trucker Tools is a free app for truck drivers to make their lives a little bit easier, but in particular, the one that I like is their Get Loads. First and foremost, number one reason, because it's free. I like free. In my training class, I always provide free resources. And so this is, I definitely understand it's DOT week, so a lot of people, are on vacation this week, if you will. But that's what I was going to say, because the reason why I'm asking this is because, that Truck Stop, they have all the loads that already been picked through. It's slim pickings, really, on those boards anyways, because either the mega carriers took them, the brokerage internal dispatching clients, or maybe their carrier friends, they took them. But one thing I'm noticing, which is key here, the reason why I'm bringing it up, since Trucker Tools is still relatively new with their Get Loads, you don't hear about them a lot in the industry. However, looking at their load board, it's clear more and more brokers starting using them. This is what I suggest for drivers. If you're not already using Trucker Tools, download the free app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, and start using the Get Loads, because not only is it free, what I like, they now the Book It Now feature. A lot of my carriers within my network, I'm talking to one in particular. She probably knows who I'm talking to. She doesn't call brokers because she doesn't want to talk to them. In a lot of cases, probably best she doesn't talk to brokers because they drive her nuts. However, the reason why she likes the Uber and the Convoy, whatever those apps are, because you can just book it now, move on with the day. Trucker Tools finally got this, okay? And I'm not saying that so you don't have to talk to a broker. I'm saying because the rates are visible and you know without wasting time what freight you can take. Another reason why I like it, because of course these loads are fed through the Trucker Tools smart capacity on the brokerage side, and I'm noticing a lot of megas, a lot of brokerages with a ton of freight, a lot of premium freight are posting their stuff on there. You don't see people on DAT doing that just quite yet. You don't see Internet Truckstop or Truckstop.com doing that. And of course, 123 Load Board, as so much in the comments, is not doing that yet. And so if you don't have it, go ahead and get that. And now, Eric asks, what would you say the average annual income of a successful freight agent is? Brian and Crystal, I did see a message pop up on my screen. I do need to speak with you. I will send you a message after this. But going back to Eric's question, what would you say the average annual salary is? It's hard to say. I can't even answer that really. It also depends what you believe is good money. Okay, it's my good money or could be totally different from yours. But I work with agents. Since it's all commission based. I work with agents who make about 10 grand a year, and I also work with agents who make well over 150 grand a year. And so it just all depends. I know that's a very unsatisfying answer, but it's hard to say what the industry average is when it's all commission. If you want to know like splits, I just answered this. With no experience, expect maybe a 50-50 split. 50 to you, 50% to the brokerage who holds the authority, the bond, and all the systems and everything else. Thank you. But, more experience, you can go up to 60, 40, 70, 30, a lot of times 80, 20. Not exactly sure how that benefits anybody, but it is there. And so I know that's unsatisfying. Donald asks, I use 123 load board because you can check the backhauls. Yes, I think Truck Stop also shows us as well. The system behind the scenes, matches them up or what have you. Very interested to see if Trucker Tools will come out with that feature. one thing I do like about them is, you guys probably heard me talk about it a lot. If there's ever an idea you have, like if a driver has an idea to make the app better, you just simply email Trucker Tools. They ask around, they talk about it with their team, and a lot of times they release it. That's what I love about them, because there's a ton of features Dad or Truck Stop could add that they don't add. And it just, I don't understand it, because they're not collecting the feedback from their actual users and making difference in the app. And that's why I say till I'm blue in the face, really. But that's why another reason why I honestly and truthfully like Trucker Tools, because I like, changing things up. I always have suggestions. I get a lot of my suggestions and ideas from the group members. And when I come up with them, you just shoot them over and they see what they can do. Andrew asks, thank you, Andrew, for being, awesome during this live. Saying my sound has an issue. Can everybody hear me? Do like the thumbs up or whatever, the like, if you guys can hear me. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay. Andrew, I hope everybody can hear me here. Andrew just asked, how do you get drivers to trust you when you have too many numbers in your MC? Okay. I'm going to assume he means too many numbers in his MC, meaning he is brand new. Maybe not him. Maybe he's someone in particular. Okay. And so, okay, it looks like people can hear me. It's saying the audio is whatever. I don't know what that means. But how do you get drivers to trust you when you have a new MC? It's the same thing. How do you get, how do you get brokers to trust carriers with a newer MC? It's basically how I always say it. The reason why, I'll get to that. Okay, part of Freight Brand, what we do is half of what Freight Brand is a branding and marketing company. We make the little guy look like a mega guy. I say that time and time again. The whole reason why I started this company with a partner is because working at a shipper and mega brokerages, I've seen a lot of smaller guys. I'm talking about smaller carriers, owner-op, small fleets, as well as freight brokers. They didn't have the option for a lot of these bigger opportunities that mega carriers and brokers, got. Because it's how they visually represented their business. A lot of one-man bands or ma and pops, I call them, trucking companies or logistics companies, they may be great, okay? They may, have the best equipment, provide the best customer service, what have you, but they're most likely overlooked with these great freight opportunities, or shippers don't even consider them because they look small. And you have to think why. It's because these shippers and brokers, it's all about risk management, and that's what I'm in a business in, risk management, how to reduce risk, etc. And it's risky. That's just basically it. And so going back to Freight Brand, at Freight Brand, we not only build websites, customized websites for freight brokers, truck drivers, even dispatchers. We also have make an email to match the website, as well as provide resources you need, such as an organized packet for shippers, and this is for brokers, as well as an organized packet to send to your carriers. Now, on the carrier side, I help them out a ton, because the majority of the carriers, for whatever reason, don't have a website. They're still using an @Gmail and @Yahoo, and their packet is sent, in 4 or 5 different separate emails, and that's the reason why they're not getting these opportunities. I hate seeing it. I think it's because of the generation I'm in. Those things are just, simple things that you do before you even get started. Launch a website, get emails to match, have, solid carrier as well as shipper packets, maybe even some sales brochures. But for some reason, no one does this anymore. And that's why, toll-free number, virtual address, websites, all that. If you look small, you're going to get small opportunities. So what I do, I make guys look bigger. And I always say, it's just a little secret that people aren't taking advantage of to get more freight opportunities. So I always have squirrel moments, meaning I start talking about something and I end up on something else. So let's go back to Andrew's question. You need to represent yourself better. If you're a brokerage, you need to start having, flexible options here. With all the brokerage I develop, I always work out them for at least a month. The last one's well over a year. And basically what I do, I help them get started. Because the first thing, you post some great loads on the load board, or call your network of carriers. They all want to take your freight. They all want to help you. It's usually their factoring company who denies you, or maybe their internal accounting who's saying, no way, Jose, will we use you being brand new. Now, what can you do as a broke? And we're going to go to carrier. What can you do as a brokerage to better your odds, let's say? Again, going back, enhance your company better, make sure that it's nothing but professional, and also just be honest with your trucking guys. I mean, your carriers, the dispatchers at these carriers, as well as the truck drivers that they're on the route. Be honest with them. Tell them the position you're in. All they want to know is that they will get paid. And now, that being said, you will have to be flexible during this time that your new brokerage is building credit. Credit rules everything. I always say the top two things that run the logistics industry, transportation and insurance companies, as well as factoring companies. And so you need to start being flexible. I hate the pay half now, half of the delivery, because it does not build your brokerage credit. And so if you keep doing that, you're still going to be in the same vicious hole you're in and never going to get out without the credit. So things I do when I develop brokerage, I call all the factoring companies. I get set up with a line of credit with those factoring companies. Typically, it's very low. We're talking like $5,000. I'm going to use this one as an example. Imagine only getting $5,000 from RTS. A lot of people use RTS, or $5,000 from Triumph. A lot of people, use Triumph. And so if you have 2 or 3 loads, that's going to eat your entire credit that you have established with that factoring company in the very beginning. So what do? You pay, and you pay quick. This is why, going back to the question about what's the startup capital needed for a freight brokerage, this is why it all depends. Because if you have, customers who's actively giving you freight, if you book a week's load, let's say for the first week of the month, you book 7 loads with that customer the first week, well, guess what? At the very end of the month, you're paying all 7 carriers for that shipment. But now the kicker is you're not getting no money from your shipper or your customer for, let's say, 30, 45, 60, 90 days. I don't know why I said 30, because I've never been paid in 30s, usually 45, 60, 90. I know a lot of bigger shippers, customers, they have quick pay options as well for the broker, but of course there's a hefty fee to do that. And so the best way that I say how to be, how can you get carriers as a new brokerage? How can you make carriers trust you? By being honest, letting them know what position you're in, and just having them trust that they're going to get paid, okay? Because they're doing the work for you. Once that load is delivered, they have nothing to get their money back. You could say a bond, but the bond's a headache, and that doesn't, pay you back for all the lost time and revenue for that. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the brokerage is factoring. Of course, they'll pay the carrier. And now, if you're asking for like your personal, for your personal reasonings, if you have a brokerage and you factor, you should be good to go, because especially like on that, because Triumph, they factor the loads. A lot of carriers, they feel great about that, because again, it's all about money. They just want to know they will get paid. And so I haven't gone through any of these polls here, what have you. I'm gonna go past them here a little bit. I'm just curious about, what's everybody struggling with? I know we're approaching an hour here. Yeah, integrity and my word is everything. And look, there's a lot of websites, I should say a lot of brokerage companies that's using the phrase, our word is our bond. If that's very powerful, because, that's all we have. And now I do want to say a little bit about the word is our bond. Talking about rates, I should have mentioned this in the beginning. Part of the reason with this market craziness, if you will, for lack of better words, a lot of it is because, I used to do a lot of RFPs, back in the day on the shipper side, different makeup brokerage side. And the whole point of these RFPs, or requests for pricing, was to get freight rates for the next year, okay? And so usually when shippers or larger brokers sent out these RFPs, RFQs to carriers and other brokerages to get rates, they will honor them the next year. Well, what's happening now? Shippers and customers are not honoring contractor rates. They don't have to. I mean, no one's holding them against, the contracted rates that they're doing, and they're simply not honoring them because they're playing with the spot market. And so, talk about the word is our bond. As service providers, whether you're a driver, carrier, freight broker, freight agent, as a service provider, that's how we sell our service. By saying, you can trust me, my word is my bond. I'm not going to, drag my name through the dirt for a simple load, or, intentionally cause problems on a load and drag my name through the dirt. And see, shippers are not doing it, but I get it. On a business standpoint, I totally understand why shippers and customers are not keeping to their word or keeping to their contracted rates, it's because it's just bad. If you guys see the poll there, what are you struggling with the most? If you could just let me know, what are you guys struggling with the most? I am curious about this. I know a lot of times it is just simply pricing. I get it. You know, it's yeah, decent paying loads. That's basically what it is. So about the struggling and the decent paying loads, it all goes back to, as I mentioned, is finding your strong brokers. Again, not everybody's posting things on the load boards. Premium loads are found off the load boards, or premium loads are found on newer load boards, such as Trucker Tools, because it's built right into the brokerage. Your Log Manager is built right into the brokerage system there. So, yeah, figure out your strongest brokers. Figure out who in your wheelhouse or who in your network, people with freight, has the most freight, who's taking care of you the most. But you cannot forget, it's during this time, the market always gets better. Don't know when, but it always does. This is definitely not our first rodeo, whether you're a driver, a carrier, freight broker, freight agent. This is not our first rodeo. Now, people entering the industry, they're probably ripping out their hair because they're not understanding it, but 2008, 2009, same deal. 2015, same thing. It's just 2019 is a little bit differently. And that being said, you can't really compare 2018 because we all made some great money in 2018, except shippers. But everybody else, man, we were swimming. This year, we're not. And so pick up the phone, call your people, call your old brokers, call shipper contacts. Just call, reintroduce yourself. Because if you're not doing it, someone else is. I want to see everybody enter the year 2020 with myself. And so you just have to do that to stay afloat. Going through here. I don't know does your couch have any issues? I don't know what that means. Yeah, I can see what that is. I got it. What else? Yeah, so basically, we're good to go on that part. If you guys have any more, make sure I'm not missing. I know there's a few more things on my list I want to touch up on. However, I don't want to exceed the hour like I usually do. And so I will use it for the next video that I do. So anyways, if you guys have any questions, any comments about the thing, whatever, or you just simply want to talk freight, if you simply want to talk freight, just send me a message on my page, Craig Bliss, or of course, post your question in the group, Freight Brokers and Truck Drivers. Until next time, thank you.